Great Gatsby, Chapter 1 A New Life in the East. In the East. A New Life in the East. Many years ago, my father gave me some advice which I have always remembered. When you are trying to judge someone, try to remember that many people have not had the same opportunity as yourself. They didn't elaborate any further. He didn't have to. I knew exactly what he meant. He spoke an understanding of one another. Because of his advice, I always erred the side of caution. This, in turn, caused me to become known as a non-judgmental, servant character who was then subjected to the mundane conversation with not good number individual. I was also the reliable politician, and whenever I felt another was going to confine me, I would often pretend to be asleep or just focus my attention on self. Despite completely fails to understand the hearts of a man and my patience with a shortcoming, I realized that there are limits. I reached the point where I just wanted everyone the same consistent value. I didn't care which value you founded upon. I just wanted to free the burden you enforced to deal with the minds and hearts of others. Gatsby stood forever in life despite him. Yet he is this only man whose problem, feelings, and emotion interested him. Gatsby was a remarkable man. He was filled with such promise and hope that I'd never seen in anyone before. He possessed an amazing value for romance, and I am sure I'll never find such enthusiasm in anyone again. Gatsby achieved great success in his life, but it was the road we took to success is still again. I heard that my family descended from Dukes of Buccleuch, but it was my grandfather's brother who started my family's business. He started Harvard business in the Midwestern Sea. It has been my family for 3 generations, and my father still runs it today. People often comment that I look like my great uncle, but I can only hold myself in a single course of him is my father's office. After graduating in 1915, I fought in the Great War. Despite Bangla's many experiences with the war, I enjoyed myself, and it made it more difficult for me to settle back into life in the Midwest. Because of this feeling, I started to head east. I thought the marriage tried my end in the bond business. All the people I knew were doing the same thing. I thought that I too might try and prosper dealing in bond. My family talked it over. They were concerned and then caution, but eventually they all agreed. My father agreed to support me financially for a year until I got on my feet. After a lot of fun and several delays, I eventually came east in the year 1922. For me, it was going to be a permanent move. As soon as I arrived, I set about finding some accommodation. I was used to having large mountain space with lots of trees, so when another young man first suggested we share a house, I immediately agreed. He found house rent for $80 a month, but then he was suddenly transferred to Washington. I went to the house alone in the dark, which learned after a few days later. I bought all dogs and hired a fish owner to cook and clean for me. I thought we were lonely outsider for a while until a stranger struck me in the street. He asked, "How do I get to West End Village?" I suddenly felt like one of the locals said regarding the through to his destination. A new feeling of being comfortable in my surroundings overcame me. I settled down to begin my main task of reading. I bought several volumes of finance, banking, and other subjects related to my chosen field of work. I had the intention of reliving my college days when I had been very well read. I reviewed a good number of editorials for the Yale Lead. The neighborhood which I found myself living was one of the most interesting communities in North America. On a very narrow island just east of New York, there are two very interesting land formations. They lie approximately 20 miles from the city. These are called the Eds. They are completely identical and are almost separated by a bay. They sit in what is known as Long Island Sound. Despite being completely identical in shape and size, these two eggs share many differences. I live on the West Egg. This is the last fashionable side, where residents are part of being rich. These people have only recently become wealthy and these yet are still trying to build up their identity in the upper class. My house is right at the egg. It is located between two very large houses. These houses usually rent in summer in the area of $12,000 to $15,000 for the season. The house on the right is a massive structure. It looks like the Hotel of Normandy. It was a fairly new house, and the ivy was just under recovery. At the back, there is a marble swimming pool, and behind it, a 40-acre garden line. It was in this house that Gatsby resided. Of course, I didn't know at the point. Compared to his magnificent house, the one I was living in looked like a shampoo. However, I was able to overlook this point. I had a magnificent view of Long Island Sound. I could partly into my neighbor's backyard, and I was rubbing shoulders with a millionaire. All this for the bargain price only $80 a month. On a beautiful evening, I found myself driving over Curious Bay to the Buchanan's house. They live on the East Egg. Across the bay, I could see their mansions with the lights sparkling on the water. It was quite a magnificent sight. Tom Buchanan lived at East Egg with Daisy, who was my second cousin. I didn't know them very well, although I have attended college with Tom. After I got back from the war, it's been a couple of days with them in Chicago. Tom was a very impressive man. Back in college in New Haven, Tom had been one of the most successful and powerful college football players. He excelled so greatly into 21 that every achievement he made after almost seemed like disappointment. He also came from an extremely wealthy family, and he always lived a very extravagant life. After marrying, Tom and Daisy have lived a very careful life. They travel here and there wherever there are rich people playing polo. It was quite surprising when they finally decided to come and settle in the East. During the telephone conversation with Daisy, she told me that they were permanent in East. I found it difficult to believe because I could not imagine Tom being happy in one place. He has lived the past few years in search of something that developed exactly in the Germanic portfolio. The evening I drove to Tom and Daisy's house is quite warm, very windy. When I arrived, their house was really taken aback. Tom was very wealthy. But I could not imagine the extravagant house we drove up that evening. It was a lovely red and white Georgian colonial mansion, full about a quarter of a mile front of it, lovely gardens and brick walks made their way down to the beach. It was covered in vine, and at the front there was lined French window. They all wide open to capture afternoon end. I pulled up to the entrance, Tom standing on the top of the veranda. He was still in riding clothes and he stood the legs apart. He had an ace in Santa College, but he's not listened to his side strength. Under his riding clothes I see his powerful muscles move. He was all about 3 years of age. His eyes fair and the eyes still glowed the confident arrogance. His voice was deep and resonating whenever he spoke. His voice always conveyed contempt. This caused more than just a few people hating. We were never very close in college. Despite that, I always got the impression he wanted me as more and equipment. We stood on his veranda for some time. Looking around him, he said, "This is a very nice place here." He took my arm and turned him around. We stood looking out of the ground. We looked out of the garden, which included an Italian garden, half an acre rose garden. All this had belonged to Oilman, the man, Tom told me. "Why don't you go inside now?" Tom took me through the front entrance and into a high hallway. This hallway had a bright room-lined French window. These windows were open. They were trimmed wide in contrast with the immaculate mound sheet to make it all the way to the window. The wind was quite strong, and some curtains were fluffing about the wind the other end of the room. I looked around and realized that only thing the wind was not affecting was Jolan's couch. 2 women were sitting at the end of it, and skirts were also fluffing around. They were dressed in white. They looked like a balloon that mercilessly being tossed around by the wind. I stood there watching everything being blown around the thunder and the thundering sound of Tom closing the window. The trap wind its force stopped in minutes, and finally, everything in the room became calm. I was now able to examine 2 women more carefully. I had not met the younger of the 2. She was completely stretched on her end of the couch. She was completely still, and with her chin pulled up a little, gave no hint that she was seen. I was taken aback by her inattention. I mumbled this apology for the spurning. Daisy was the other on the couch. She laughed a little and leaned forward. I left her too and came further into the room. "I'm so real to see you," she exclaimed. She came over to me and gave her another little charming laugh. She took my hand and looked into my face, giving me a figuring that there was no one else on earth she would let her see. She whispered to me very quietly that the family name of the girl behind the newspaper. Ladies were known for whispering things quietly. I even been told she did it because she wanted people to lean in towards her. I looked behind Daisy and I saw Miss Baker nod her head in the green one ever so slightly. Again, having felt her disturbed, I mumbled an apology. I looked at Daisy again, and she started asking me questions. She radiated that night, but she had a sad loveliness about her. Her eyes sparkled, and she spoke in an excited way that man could never forget. Her voice sang, and it compelled men to listen. In her spoken tone, her voice hinted at exciting things that she had experienced. and suggested more excitement over the horizon. I stopped off in Chicago for a while before I came east, I told her. All of your friends, your family asked me to send their love to you. Do they miss me? She cried. Of course they do. Everyone is mourning. Everyone painted the left wheel on the back of their car black as a sign of mourning. You should hear the crying for along the North Shore too, I said. Tom, let's go back there. We should go there tomorrow. Would you like to see the baby? She asked me. Of course, I'd love to see her, I said. She's sleeping at the moment. She's 3. Have you ever seen her? She asked. No, not once. Tom, who seemed bored by the conversation, came over and put a hand on my shoulder. So, what are you going to do, Nick? He asked me. I'm going to be working with Bonds. Which company? He asked. I told him and he said, I never heard of them. I was a bit offended by this, so I said, well, if you think it is for any period of time, you will certainly hear of them. Will soon be than is now, Tom said. As he spoke, he looked over Daisy, waiting for her reaction. Will be stupid want to leave anyone else? Absolutely. It was Miss Baker who said that. She had not said anything the whole time I was there, and her contribution to the conversation took me quite by surprise. This sudden news of a common surprise to her because she yawned, got up and said, I'm stuffed. I don't know how long I've been lying on the couch. Don't blame me, said Daisy. I've been trying to get you up so we can go to New York all afternoon. Just then, Sylvan came out with a tray of full cocktail. No, thank you, said Miss Baker. I'm in training. Tom was surprised by this. You are? I can't believe that you ever get anything done. He took a drink and did refill one mouthful of water. I looked at Miss Baker and wondered what it was she needed to get done. She was a very attractive girl. She was very petite, with very good posture. She tended to throw her shoulders back. She had gray eyes and she looked at me curiously. I suddenly realized that I had seen her before. I understand you live in West Egg, she said. There was an undertone of disapproval in her voice. I know one person there. I haven't met anyone there yet, I said. You must know Gatsby, she said. Daisy interrupted at that point. Gatsby? What Gatsby? She demanded. Dinner was now before I got a chance to say he was my neighbor. Tom took my arm and pushed me through to where dinner was being served. The two women walked ahead of us and we went out onto the veranda. A sun with poor candles flickered on the table. Of course, the wind had completely eased by this time. We don't need candles yet. Come in to Daisy, who put them out immediately. Did you know that it will be the longest day of year in about 2 weeks? She asked. I always wait for the longest day of the year and miss it. Will she plan to do something on that day? Said Miss Baker, yawning. Good idea. What should we do? Daisy asked. I was about to say something, but then Daisy quickly said, Look, I hurt my finger. Look at her finger, which is black and blue. You did it, Tom, she accused. I know it's an accident, but you still did it. That's my punishment for marrying huge hawking physical sample lover. Even if meant jokingly, I hate that word hawking, said Tom. Hawking, exclaimed Daisy. Exclaimed Daisy. She had the Great Gatsby. Daisy get blue and black. Browser from Chapter 2. Loomer of a mistress. Loomer is a mistress. While we were waiting for dinner to be served, Daisy Miss Baker for occasional lessons on private conversation. Although the accepted presence of Tom and me, they did little to entertain us, and then hardly respond to our effort to entertain them. They seemed to casually accept the evening would come to close. This was quite different to attitudes in life. Evening were usually hurried to the dread evening ever coming to an end. I feel quite uncivilized around you, Daisy, I said to her. I wish you'd take up more of our topic, Tom butted in before Daisy even got a chance to respond. Beloved Daisy are just falling apart, Tom said briefly. Have you ever heard of Arthur Goddard? He wrote a book titled The Rise of the Color Empire. Tom spoke quite lovely, surprised me. No, I haven't read it. I told him you should. The Rise based whole book on science. He says the white race must be careful or be taken over by all the other races. Tom said. Tom likes to read a lot of a book about a philosophic subject. It's very deep, Daisy said. Tom looked at Daisy with short nose and said, No, this book's scientific. The writer is all worked up. He could demonstrate how it would be possible for other races to rule and dominate. We had to fight to maintain before control. We have to beat them in submission. Daisy whispered to me and winked same time. Tom continued to talk. We are have no background. You do, Nick? I do. Miss Baker doesn't, so Daisy. It is Western civilization curious scientists are. It all works together by civilization. I looked at Tom and thought he looked a bit pathetic. He was trying so hard and drew full former complacency. I was in the middle of my thought when the telephone rang. The butler went inside and sorry. Daisy took the opportunity to whisper something to me. I want to tell you a secret. It's about the butler's note. Do you want to hear about it? She asked. It's very recent where I could visit. You used to be a silver preacher or some wealthy New York people. They had a store service of 200 people. It was a job to polish the silver, but it is naturally that this is not. Finally, he had to give up his job. I looked at Daisy and I noticed their face was glowing. Her delicate voice somewhat forced me leaning towards her. Roberto reappeared and whispered something in Tom's ear. The expression on Tom's face changed. He frowned and got up without saying a word. Daisy almost seemed to become animated by Tom's departure from the table. She leaned closer to me and said, Nick, it's wonderful to have you at my table. You almost resemble Rose. Doesn't he almost look like Rose? She asked me, Miss Baker. I thought that this was a very strange thing for Daisy to say. I don't look anything like a Rose. I know she was only trying to make me feel comfortable with the wrong insincerity. A few moments later, she placed a napkin on the table, excused herself, went inside. Miss Baker and I briefly looked at each other. I almost something when she could say, we listened closely and could hear voices mumbling out of the room inside. Miss Baker moved closer that she could hear better. You can continue to listen. At one point, we could understand most of the words being said, but Annie became incoherent. I decided to try make some conversation, so I said, You must have met Gatsby earlier. He happened to be my neighbor. I want to hear about what they say, Miss Baker said. Is it of any interest? I asked. You don't know? She asked, looking very surprised. I thought everyone knew. I don't know anything. I told. Well, really? Tom has another woman in New York. She called me. I stared at her in question. Another woman? She nodded her head. She doesn't even have the manners not to call at dinner time, remarked Miss Baker. Miss Baker had only just finished speaking when Tom and Daisy returned to the dinner table. Sorry for leaving you, apologized Daisy. She sat down, looked at Miss Baker, and then at me. Then she said, I went outside for a minute. It's such a lovely evening. It's very romantic. I think there's a nightingale on the lawn at the moment. Tom, isn't it romantic? It's very romantic. He replied. He turned to me and said, Why don't you take you down the stairway to dinner if you still some light? At that moment, the telephone rang. Daisy shook her head at Tom, and Dora thought the stable was forgotten. It was a very uncomfortable moment. I remembered that the candles had been lit again, and I looked at everyone with the boys looking at Tom and Daisy. Even Miss Baker, who had an air of cynicism about her, would not have been able to ignore the existence of the uninvited fifth guest that evening. Dinner finally came to an end, and Tom and Miss Baker walked slowly back into the house. Daisy and I walked around the outside of our house along a means of connecting veranda. We stopped the porch in the front, where we ended up sitting on the wicker settee. Daisy leaned forward and put her chin in the hand like she was pondering some great mystery. I knew that feeling must be of being turmoil, so I decided to ask her some question about her young daughter. She suddenly spoke, however. We are cousins. We don't even know each other very well. Why didn't you come to my wedding? She asked. I was too overseas because of the war, I said. I suppose. I've been having a terrible time. I've become very skeptical about absolutely everything. She told me. I could certainly understand why she felt that way. I worried for her to continue to speak, but she didn't. I'm at another attempt asking her about her little girl. She does everything every other child does, I suppose. She talks now. I guess she eats everything too, I said. Yes, she does, Daisy told me. Can you imagine what I said when she was born? Do you want me to tell you? Yes, please tell me, I said. It will show you how cynical I am of everything on my right now. I have no idea where Tom was. She was born. She was only about an hour old when I woke up. I asked the nurse whether my child was a boy or a girl, and she told me it was a girl. I started to cry. There we are where I said, I have a daughter. I hope she's really quite stupid poor. That's the best thing for a woman to be in this world. I hope she's the goldest fool. Fool, everything like this red bulb, Daisy said. I know that everyone feels the same way. People advance country to anyway. I've been to all of them, and everyone feels the same way about things as I do. I've been seeing everything and everything. She let her laugh feel the reason. God, oh, they're sophisticated. I'm so sophisticated. At that, she stopped speaking, and this only then realized she was being sarcastic. I suddenly felt uncomfortable. An evening had over a plan to extort some sympathetic feeling from me. I looked at her and suddenly a sneer appeared on her face. It was like the emphasized associated some secret organized something. Gatsby and I eventually drifted into the room with Tom, Miss Baker were. They were each in the wrong couch. She was reading to Tom from Saturday Evening Post. Her voice was both melodious and confident. Just behind them, a lamp gave off the lovely light which reflected lovely autumn tone in her hair. As she turned the page of paper, the movement of muscle was also eccentric in the line. Daisy and I walked in the room and she immediately held up a hand, signaling for us to keep quiet. Soon after, she said, "To be continued in the next installment." While she threw the magazine down, she adjusted her position and then stood up. "It's already 10 o'clock. It's time for this girl to go to bed. Jordan has a match tomorrow," explained Daisy. "She is going to play in tournament at Westchester." Now I suddenly knew why she looked so familiar to me when I first saw her. "Oh, you're Jordan Baker," I said. I had seen her face on many magazines before. Her cynical yet very pleasant face had been many times. I've seen a picture of magazines such as Hot Springs, Palm Beach, and Nashville. I also heard some story about her. One of them was not flattering at all, but I couldn't remember at all what it was about. "Make sure we make me your age all right," she said. "If you can get you up." "I'll get up for sure. Good night. Mr. Carroll, it was nice to meet you. See you again. You must definitely. Well, I think it would be wonderful if I arrange a marriage between you two. Why don't you come over often, Dick? I will accidentally lock you up, or push you out into the sea. You know, force you together, that kind of thing. Good night," Miss Baker said again wholly. I didn't hear a word you say. "She's a good girl," Tom commented. "I surprised her for a roam around the country that she does." Daisy looked at me angrily and said, "Who do you mean by they?" "Her family." "Her family can set on one who was born centuries ago. You need worry because Nick is here now. You look after her, won't you, Nick? She's going to spend lots of time here during this summer. I think it would do her the world good." Tom and Daisy looked at each other. I sensed an awkward feeling and quickly said, "Is Miss Baker from New York?" No, she isn't. She's from India. We spent our girl there together. A beautiful while. So when you out on the veranda, did you frank discussion together? Tom asked Daisy. Daisy looked at me and asked, Did we? We talked about all sorts of things. I think at one point we even talked about Nordic ways. You know how easy it is to murmur one subject to, you can't believe everything Avery tells you, Nick. Tom said to me, I haven't heard anything at all. I said to mere lighter fashion, I think about time we'll be going home. We all stood up together and walked me out of the house. They waited in the doorway to see me off. I turned the engine on and just then Daisy called out, Wait! She came rushing over to me. I wanted to ask you something. It's really quite important. Tom and I heard that you're engaged to a girl in your two outfits, Daisy said. Yet we both heard the same thing. We're engaged. Not at all. It's only a rumor. I'm too poor for anyone to be interested in hearing me, I said. But how is that possible? You heard it from 3 different people, and you hear the same thing from so many different people. It must be true, said Daisy. I knew exactly what they were talking about. The truth was that I was never even close to being engaged, but it is me amazing how quickly gossip spread. That was one of the main reasons that I decided to move east. It was a situation that I felt torn about. I didn't want to stop spending time with a good friend because of rumor, but I also didn't want to ruin to getting married. I almost felt the common Daisy interest maybe then seemed almost too much less rich. Ivan said mood I considered interesting. Despite that, I saw some scorn for them. I knew the right thing for Daisy to do would be to take daughter and leave Tom. She obviously no plan at all to do that. And the fact that Tom had a normal woman in New York did not come at all as surprise. In fact, I was far more surprised in Tom's interesting looks. It almost seemed like he was trying to fill some boy's life. I drove away, left them spread in the house. I drove along halfway housing garage which just seemed to have a new red gas pump front. The summer moon is full, with plenty glowing shiny rays over everything I passed, allowing me to see everything almost clearly through the day. I arrived home, loaded my dozing under the garage where I kept it. I decided to outside for a while. Be a fierce wind which had blown so strongly a few hours earlier had completely disappeared. All that was left now were bright lights in the moon which lit up the ear as it rested on the orchestral sound in the southern front. In distance I saw the line of a cat stopping moving through the night. I turned my heart to watch it travel closer to its destination. And then I noticed that my neighbor had appeared 50 feet in front of me. He had suddenly appeared from out of here in enormous mansion, and was now standing on his lawn with his hand in his pocket, looking up into the night sky which was peppered with a million twinkling stars. He was pondering, something. I had never seen the man before, but there was something about him that indicated he was Mr. Gatsby, who would now come out to calculate how much that star-filled sky he actually owned. I thought I might call out to him. Miss Baker had raised to name that evening, and I thought there would be a good reason for me to speak to him. However, before I had a chance to say anything, Mr. Gatsby's movement indicated to me he preferred to be interrupted. He struck design or divinity distant that seemed like he was trembling. I looked out towards the ocean, where it stretched down to. I saw very thick line and thought that it could be the light at the end of the pier. I turned my gaze back to where Gatsby had been standing, but he disappeared. Appear on the pier, or had appeared on the pier. Disappear, but he's disappeared on the pier. The Great Gatsby. Chapter 3. A New York Apartment. On the road between West Egg, New York, there is a section of the road which meets the railroad. The railroad in the motor went in side by side for a quarter of a mile. This section is in the valley and it's a very volcanic miserable area. The smoke is poured out of the train. The pasture get trapped in the valley and left an ashen gray all through the valley. Everything is gray. The house is gray, the trees, car, people, and mountains are gray. This valley also has disgusting gray river which runs through. Barges pass along this river, causing many trains to stop and wait when the drivers live to let the barges pass. Because of this, many travelers for this visitor I suppose they prefer surrounding outside. Sometimes this pond, its journeys cannot too long as 30 minutes. It was because of this hope that I first had a chance to meet Tom Buchanan mysteries. Everyone was rather rude in the big hat that he was quite well known deflaunted. Those associated with them were offended with the tone of the public with her, usually in popular cafes and restaurants. He would then leave her at the table, walk around, chatting and laughing with all those he knew. I have to admit, when you're very curious to find out what she looked like, although I no desire to actually meet her. However, I had no choice in the matter. I did meet her, anyways, when I was on the train which traveled through the upper senior one day with Tom. We are going to New York together. We stopped the usher on the way. He jumped out of seat, took me by the arm, and said, "I really want to be my girl." He didn't seem having a sense of shame. He was cheering on my cousin. He also got pretty drunk at lunchtime in the cold store and sunset. He was so intent on being his girl that Youngwa seemed to become violent. I found it extremely arrogant to him. He thought it was nothing else I would have preferred to do on a Sunday afternoon. After we got our train, we climbed over a low window fence and started walking towards the town, which looked much like a wasteland. The first building I came inside a small, bulky yellow brick shop. One of the shops outside at the front saying for rent. Another was an all-right restaurant in the service grounds. It had a sign at the front which said, "Look here, George B. Wilson, Car Spot and Soul." We walked inside. The garage looked very similar to outside surrounding we had just left. It was bare and depressing. We used on dust-covered racks and sitting inside on the corner. I almost felt this garage must be from something else. Perhaps above there would be a luxurious apartment. The owner of the garage soon appeared. He came in wiping his dirty hand on the cloth. He was a blond, fair-skinned man who looked like he lacked any sense of spirit. A spark of hope flashed into his eye when he saw Sandy in his garage. "What's in all sport, how are you?" queried Tom, slapping on the shoulder in a friendly manner. "How's business?" "It's not too bad," he replied in a nice, convincing tone. "When am I going to become the owner of that car?" "Mommy's working with this maid. She'll be ready next week," Tom said. "That man of yours sure slow," commented Wilson. "No, he doesn't," snapped Tom. "And we can't wait. I'm sure I'll be able to sell our house one." "I didn't mean that," Wilson said quickly. Tom wasn't listening, however, he's looking around the garage very impatiently. A few months later, we heard the sound of footsteps, and the woman quickly entered. She was quite a solid, plump woman in her 30s, but she carried her size in a very attractive manner. She was wearing dark, full, practicing dress, and the face above it was actually very plain without any hint of great beauty. Despite this, there was a certain digger about her which was extremely attractive. She smiled and walked towards us, completely ignoring her husband, as though he did not even exist. She went to Tom, shook his hand, looked at him directly in the eyes with her lips. Then she turned to her husband and very laughingly said, "Bring some chairs, you can sit down." "Of course," said Wilson, who quickly went off against the chair. He disappeared, blended in the ashen color of the surrounding. His wife moved closer to Tom, who said, "I want to see you. Get on the next train." She agreed. "Let's meet on the road level next to the new sled." She moved away as Wilson came back in his chair. We left immediately and went up to meet Wilson's wife. "We will further down the road." "This is shocking places, isn't it?" said Tom. "It's the worst ever," I agreed. "She needs to get away from this place," Tom said. "What did her husband think about it?" I asked. "He goes up to see her sister in New York," Tom told me. "That man is so dumb. He has no idea about anything." Eventually, she came. We all set off to New York, although Mrs. Wilson sat in another car while we were on the train. At least Tom was careful, discreet when his anger might be wrong. Before she left, Miss Wilson had changed her dress. She was now in a brown dress that accentuated her womanly hips. We got off the train, met at the newsstand where she bought a copy of Town Terror and the moving picture magazine. We also stopped at the drugstore and the station to buy some cream and bottle of perfume. We left the train station and hired a taxi. She purposely let 4 cabs drive past before she chose a lavender color one, which we were crying into. We drove along New York sunshine, but it wasn't long before she tapped on the glass and said, "I want all those gone. I want to have in my apartment. It's nice to have a run around." The taxi pulled over to where an older man is sitting. We had a basket next to it when you filled the puppy into nondescript nature. The man walked on the taxi. Mrs. Wilson asked, "What sort of dog are they?" "Oh, different kind. What sort do you want?" "I want one of those dogs, Mrs. Wilson. Do you have any of them?" Mrs. Wilson asked. The man looked in his basket, put his hand in there and pulled the puppy out. "Next is a police dog," said Tom. "No, it's not a police dog. It's a lot like an Airedale. Though look at its coat. Look at how thick it is. You never got sick or a cold like that," the man said, rubbing his hand up and down along the dog's coat. "I really like the dog. It's a real cutie. How much is it?" Mrs. Wilson asked. "It'll cost you $10, the man replied. The man gave the dog Mrs. Wilson. It settled down into laughing. Wilson caressed its coat. "Is it a boy or a girl?" she asked. "That dog was a boy," the man told her. "No, it's not. It's a bitch," Tom continued. "Here's a $10. Not going buying another $10 with it." The taxi drove off. We can continue on our way. It was very sunny, sleepy Sunday afternoon, and it almost seemed like we were in the country. I had expected to see a flock of sheep somewhere on the street in New York. We arrived on Fifth Avenue, I said. "I'm going to leave it here and hear my way." "No, I don't think so. You must come up to my apartment. Mother will be very offended you don't," Tom said. "Come on up," said Mother. "I'll call my sister. Her name is Catherine. All the people know say she is very—" "I don't know," I said. The hex didn't stop for me. The driver just continued driving on. Eventually pulled up on 158th Street, and the driver stopped in front of a long line of apartments. Mrs. Wilson got out, looked around her as if she had just arrived home, collected a dog and their purchases, and considerately went to the apartment. As we were going up at the elevator, she said, "I've got to call my sister, and I think I'm going to ask Mickey to come as well." We went right up to the town floor. The apartment was small, made of small dining, small bedroom, bathroom. The laundry room is congested by takewood furniture, which look an entire place in the small room. The only picture on the wall is a picture of an oversized hen. There was a table in the middle of the room, several roll copies down, tether line. There was also a copy of Simon called Peter there too. The first thing Mr. Wilson did was attend to the boy. She asked the elevator boy to get a box of tron and milk for it. He went up very reluctantly. He came back with the box, milk, and he also picked up dry dog's food. While all of this happening, Tom went and got a large bottle of whiskey from a cupboard somewhere. There only been 2 times when I got drunk in my life, and that afternoon was one of them. Most of the events that afternoon disenhanced my memory. I still remember Mrs. Wilson sitting on Tom's lap while she spoke to several people on the telephone. At one point, I wanted a cigarette from the corner drugstore. When I came back from my errand, they had vanished. In my newfound solitude, I sat down on one of a chair in the veranda room trying to read a copy of Simon called Peter. With the effects the alcohol stirring everything, the book didn't make any sense to me at all. Tom and Mother eventually suffered inside to go to the guest Mother had invited. After being overkill for alcohol, Mrs. Wilson and I started calling each other by our first name. Mother's sister Catherine arrived. She looked about 30, very slender, and had very fair, powdery complexion. She walked in the looked at such an attitude she might. I asked her if she just loved me. Not at all, she said. I leave the girlfriend at hotel. The Mickeys arrived there at the same time as Catherine. Mr. Mickey is a very fair-mannered, very feminine. He had very obvious before coming his two small mountain shaving cream on his neck. He greeted everyone respectfully, told me he drew to artistic work. I later found out he was a photographer. His wife, rather a ruined woman, his very loud, accusing voice, and his mixture of being handsome. Horrible. Did you know my husband photographed me 100 times? She said to me very arrogantly. Mrs. Wilson now had changed her dress once more. She had changed into a cream chiffon dress, which rustled and moved out of the room. It almost seemed like her personality changed the clothing she wore. When I first saw her in the blue dress, she had a new bad color. Now, with cream chiffon dress, she had a gray self-important. The way she moved up the room, spoke almost demanded everyone pay attention to her. Catherine, you have to be careful with always time. She advised to sister. All people think about money. They will eat you out of much of they can. I had a woman come here to look at my baby. When I came time to pay her, you'd have thought me from sanatorium or something. Who was that woman? Asked Miss Comiskey. Mrs. Evera, she looked at people in their own home. Replied Mr. Wilson. I think that is a lovely dress you're wearing. Complimented Mr. Mickey. Mrs. Wilson just threw her hand in the air and dismissed your mom. It's just something I have lying around that I came to words once in a while. I don't care about how I look, she said. But the dress is really stunning on you. Continue, Mr. Mickey. I think my husband to take a picture of you, he'll be able to tell you how to pose perfectly. It will turn out wonderfully. We all looked at Mr. Wilson and imagined how she will look in the photograph. She smiled back at us very brightly. Mr. Mickey looked at her intently and said, I would need to change the light to bring up the best pictures. Oh, no, it's changing. No, good at all, explained Mrs. Mickey. I think it's silence. Her husband will continue to look at Mr. Mickey. Tom Yan stood up. We need to give her another drink, Tom said. Mother, we need some rice and mineral water. I told the boy to go and get it. It is so annoying. You have to keep chasing after people that get them to anything. She looked at me, laughed, and pressed her to...
Let me cut.
Yeah!
I need to cut. Sorry.
I got 2 more studies for them still. Name Montauk home to go in near the Montauk Point in sea. I from Long Island. Cat asked me, yeah, from West End. I told her. I was at a party at Gatsby house not too long ago. Do you know him? She asked. He's my neighbor. I've heard people say he got some money because his nephew or something caused a ruin. I found him very intimidating. I wouldn't want to be his dad, I said. Our conversation was then interrupted by Mrs. McKay, who said, "Won't you take a picture of Catherine?" Mr. McKay simply nodded his head. "If I could get her permission, I'd love to moor Long Island. I just need entry," he said. "Why don't you ask Mo? She can get you a letter of introduction," commented Tom. "What are you talking about?" asked Mora. "You can introduce Mr. McKay to your husband. You'll be able to some more. Just imagine George Wilson in gasoline. You'll be really color-effective," said Tom Rizzo. Read aloud The Great Gatsby, page 136. Gatsby, would you like to speak to Alon? Would you like to speak to Alon? I got a time set, 24 minutes, 22. Yes, 25 minutes, like a Pomodoro. Gatsby, would you like to speak to you alone? With me? She exclaimed in surprise. "Yes, madam." She got up slowly, raising her eyebrows at me in astonishment, and followed the bottle toward the house. I noticed that she wore her evening dress, or her dresses, like sport clothes. There was a jauntiness about her movements, as if she had first learned to walk often golf courses on clean, crisp mornings. I was alone, and it was most too. For some time, confused and intriguing sounds had issued from a long, many windows room which overhung the terrace. Adulling Jordan's undergraduate, who was now engaged in an obstetrical conversation with two chorus girl, and who implored me to join him. I went inside. The large room was full of people. One of the girls in yellow was playing the piano, and beside her stood a tall, red-haired young lady from a famous chorus. Engaged in song, she had drunk a quantity of champagne, and during the course of her song, she had decided inopportunely that everything was very, very sad. She was not only singing, she was weeping too. Whenever there was a pause in the song, she filled it with gasping, broken sob, and then took up the lyrics again in a quivering soprano. The tears coursed down her cheeks, not freely, however, for when they came When they came into contacts with her heavily that beaded eyelashes, they assumed a ink color and persevered the rest of their way in slow black revealed. A humorous suggestion was made that she seemed the knots on her face, whereupon she threw up her hands, sank into a chair, and went off into a deep venous sleep. She had a flight with a man who says he's her husband, explained a girl at my elbow. I looked around. Most of the remaining women were now having flight with men said to be their husband. Even Jordan's party, the quartet from East Egg, well-ranked, ascertained by dissension. One of the men was taking with curious intensity to a young actress, and his wife, after attempting to laugh at the situation in a dignified and indifferent way, broke down entirely and resorted to flank attacked, and in intervals she appeared suddenly at his side like an angry diamond, and hissed, "You promised," into his car. The reluctance to go home was not confined to wayward men. The whole was at present occupied by two developably sober men and their highly indignant wives. The wives were sympathizing with each other in silently raised voice. Whenever he eyes, I'm having a good time, he went to go home. Never heard anything so selfish in my life. You're already the first ones to leave. So are we? Well, we are almost the last nine, said one of the men sheepishly. The orchestra left half an hour ago. In spite of the wives' agreement that such benevolence was beyond credibility, the dispute ended in the short suggest, and both wives were left kicking into a night. As I waited for my hat in the hall, the door of a library opened, and Jordan Baker and Gatsby came out together. He was saying some last word to her, but the eagerness in his manner tightened abruptly into formality as several people approached him to say goodbye. Jordan's pretty well calling impatiently to her from the perch, but she lingered for a moment to shake hands. "I've just heard the most amazing thing," she whispered. How long were we in there?" "Why, about an hour." "It was simply amazing," she repeated abstractedly. "But I swore I wouldn't tell it, and here I'm tantalizing you." Tantalizing you, she yawned gratefully in my face. "Please come and see me." Phone book under the name of Mrs. Singularly. However, my aunt, she was hurrying off as she talked. Her brown hands waved a genetic salute as she melted into her party at the door. Rather ashamed that on my first appearance I had stayed so late, I joined the last of Gatsby's guests to clustered around him. I wanted to explain that I'd hunted for him early in the evening and apologized for not having known him in the garden. "Don't mention it," he enjoined me angrily. Don't give another thought, old spot." The familiar expression held no more familiarity than the head, which reassuringly brushed my shoulder. "And don't forget, we are going up in the hydroplane tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Then the bullet behind his shoulder. Philadelphia wants you on the phone, sir." "All right, in a minute. Tell them I will be right there. Good night." He smiled, and suddenly there seems to be a pleasant significance in having been among the last to go, as if his head desired it all the time. "Good night, old sport. Good night." But as I walked down the steps, I saw that the evening was not quite over. 50 feet from the door, a dozen handlight illuminated a bizarre and tumultuous scene. In the ditch beside the door, right side up, but violently shorn of one wheel, rested a new couple which had left Gatsby Drive not 2 minutes before. The sharp jet of well accounted for the detachment of the wheel, which was now getting considerable attention from half dozen curious chaperons. However, as they had left their cars, breaking the road, a harsh discordant dim from those in the rear had been audible for some time, and added to the already violent confusion of the scene. A man in a long duster had dismounted from the brick and now stood in the middle of the road, looking from the car to the Tara and from the Tara to the observer in a pleasant, puzzled way. He exclaimed, It went in the ditch. In fact, was infinitely astonishing to him, and I recognized first the unusually quietly of wonder, and then the man. It was later patron of Gatsby Library. How's it happen? He shrugged his shoulders. I know nothing whatever about machines. He said that decisively. But how did it happen? Did you run into the wall? Don't ask me, said Owl Eyes, washing his hands over the whole matter. I know very little about driving, next to nothing. It happened, and that's all I know. Well, if you're a poor driver, you ought to try driving at night. But I wasn't even trying, he explained indignantly. I wasn't even trying. An awed hush fell upon the bystanders. Do you want to commit suicide? You're lucky it was just a wheel. A bad driver and not even trying. You don't understand, explained the criminal. I wasn't driving. There's another man in the car. The shock that followed this declaration found voice in a sustained as the door of the coupe swung slowly open. The crowd, it was now a crowd, stepped back involuntarily, and when the door had opened wide, there was a ghostly pause, and very gradually, part by part, a pair dangling individual stepped out of the wreck, pawing tentatively at the ground with a large, uncertain dancing shoe. Blinded by the glare of the headlights and confused by the incessant growling of the horn, the apparition stood, swaying for the moment before the perceived the man in the duster. What? Who? What? WHA apostrophe S? What matter? He inquired calmly. Did we run out of gas? Look, half a dozen fingers pointed at the amputated wheel. He started at it for a moment, and then looked upward as thought. He suspected that it had dropped from the sky. It came up, someone explained. He nodded. At first I didn't notice we were stopped. A pause. Then, taking a long breath and straightening his shoulders, he remarked in a determined voice, Wonderful. Tell me where there is a gas line station. At least a dozen men. Some of them a little better off than he was, exclaimed to him that wheel and car were no longer joined by any physical bond. Back out, he suggested after a moment, put her in reverse. But the words of he hesitated, no harm in trying, he said. The caterwauling horn had reached a crescendo, and I turned away and cut across the lawn toward home. I glanced back once. A waffle of a moon was shining over Gatsby house, making the night fine as before, and surviving the laughter and the sound of his still glowing garden. A sudden emptiness seems to flow now from the windows and the great door, enduring with complete isolation the figure of the host, who stood on the perch, his hand up in a formal gesture of farewell. Reading over what I have written so far, I see I have given the impression that the events of this night, several wheels apart, were all that observed me. On the contrary, they were merely casual events in a crowded summer, and until much later they absorbed me infinitely less than my personal affairs. More of the time I walked in the early morning, the sun threw my shadow westward as I hurried down the white chasms of rural New York to the Probity Trust. I knew the other clock times up for 25 minutes, like Pomodoro, tomato method. Just let me finish this, and next page is perfect. I want to fit 30 minutes, half an hour. I knew the other clocks and young bond salesmen by their first name, and launched with them in dark, crowded restaurants on Little Pig suggest, and mashed potatoes and coffee. I even had a short affair with a girl who lived in Jersey City. I walked in the accounting department, but her brother began throwing looked in my direction. So when she went on her vacation in July, I let it blow quietly away. I took dinner usually at the Yale Club. For some reason, it was the gloomiest event of my day, and then went upstairs to the library and studied investments and securities for a consignation hour. There were generally a few realtors around, but they never came into the library, so it was a good place to work. After that, if the night was mellow, I strolled down Madison Avenue past the Wood Mary Hill Hotel and over 33rd Street to the Pennsylvania station. I began to like New York, the racy, adventurous feel of it at night, and the satisfaction that the constant flicker of men and women in matchings gives to the restless eye. I like to walk up Fifth Avenue and pick out romantic women from the crowd and imagine that in the few minutes I was going to enter into their lives, and no one would ever know or disapprove. Sometimes in my mind I followed them to their apartments on the corner of Hidden Street, and they turned and smiled back at me before they faded through the door into warm darkness. At the end, in enchanted metropolitan twilight, I felt a haunting loneliness sometimes. I felt it in others, poor young clerks who loitered in front of windows waiting until it was time for a solitary restaurant dinner. Yeah, it's good time to finish. Page 154. Thank you so much today. Wonderful day. You are amazing. The world is your oyster. Let's get it.